Hi, we're Quaint and Curious Volumes. My name is James, but for the month of November, I am the gentleman with the little dog. Because November this year is Chekhovember, the month long celebration of Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov wrote a long short story called, variously, A Boring Story or A Dreary Story, in which the main character, who is an aging physician and professor, uh, is reflecting on, well, his life in general. He has a daughter who is a young, aspiring actress. Her name is Katya, and she wants to talk to her father about the theater. He has this to say: I never shared Katya's theatrical infatuation. I think if a play is good, there is no need to bother with actors for it to make the proper impression. It's enough simply to read it. And if a play is bad, no performance will make it good. Now, this is not Chekhov speaking. This is Chekhov's protagonist. However, I think it's clear that Chekhov does not agree with this gentleman. There's a lot of evidence that he was particular about how his plays were performed and had strong opinions and disagreements with Stanislavski, the legendary Russian director who put on most of his most famous plays, including The Seagull, which we discussed last week, and The Cherry Orchard, which I'm going to talk about this week. I am finding that The Cherry Orchard is perhaps more enjoyable than The Seagull, though they're kind of on the same level for me. I really love them both, and I really think that both of them benefit from a good performance over reading them. Um, I think that my fellow participants in Chekhovember are finding the same thing. If you are interested, if you're following along and you want to read The Cherry Orchard, I strongly recommend that you read it because it's great. But I also recommend that you at least watch the first act of a good performance, at least the first act, before you read the whole thing, because there are a lot of characters who kind of swarm in at the same time and are having these little conversations, and it's hard to get a handle on who they are, what their relation is, what bit of conversation is important, without kind of having a little handle to, at least for me, and probably for you, sort of a visual cue of what these people are like. In any event, The Cherry Orchard was Chekhov's last play. It's from 1904, and it is set on an estate out in the countryside in Russia. As the play opens, we see a man, Lopakin, and who is a wealthy former serf. And he's in this room of a great country estate that is not his own, but he grew up as one of the serfs on the estate. Now he is wealthy. The serfs were liberated in 1861, and some of them, stayed on the land. Some of them stayed with their old feudal masters. There's a character in this play who is who's an example of that. Some of them became relatively successful. This man has become quite successful, and it's unclear why exactly he is waiting at the house, but he does have important information for the people that he's waiting for. The people that he's waiting for are the family whose estate this is, and specifically the mother, Madame Ranskaya, who has been away in Paris for a number of years. She is returning. We learn why she left. Eventually, we learn why she is coming back. We also learn that this estate in which we're seeing these people is in trouble. A great deal of money is owed on it, and it is probably going to be auctioned within a few months unless the family makes plans to save it. Lopapkin the wealthy former serf has an idea. If they cut down the famous cherry orchard on the estate and divide it up into pots for summer vacation homes, dashas, they can make enough money to save the estate. The family itself, who are returning and gathering around, seem to have little understanding of the seriousness of their condition or of what they want to do, what any of it has to do with them. They are, to be honest, kind of infuriating. They're tragic, they're sad, they're unfulfilled. Sometimes they're just dumb. And your frustration is reflected in Lopakin, who at one point says, I've never known such scatterbrained, lazy people as you. I'm telling you in very plain English what you need to do to save your estate, and you're acting as if you don't even hear me. So it is tragic. I won't tell you what happens at the end, but it is probably foreseeable. But it's not entirely a tragic story. It's another play that, like The Seagull, is described by its author as a comedy. And there is a great deal of comedy in it. There's a lot of humor in it, particularly in Act Number Two, where some of the minor characters get together and talk. There is famously a gun. Now, if you know almost nothing about Chekhov, the thing that you probably know is the idea of Chekhov's gun. So if a play has a gun in the first act or the second act, it has to go off by the end. Someone has to fire it. And there is a gun prominently displayed in Act Two. And it's not really a spoiler to say the gun does not go off. But lots of other bad things happen. Things that could have been avoided. Things that are bad for some, but also triumphant for others. There's just a heartbreaking scene where one character is celebrating his triumph. He's finally achieved something he's long wanted to, but it's in front of people who the triumph is at their expense. They are losing something that's very important to them. And this is the whole play is a sort of change. It's all a season, or really almost a whole year of change. If you look at the first act seems to happen in early spring, the last one in the autumn. In between, a whole world of things have happened. And it is the end of an era for some people, and Chekhov couldn't have known it, but 1904 was very nearly the end of an era for the entire Russian imperial society. It's interesting to think about. Chekhov died shortly after this play was debuted, but 10 years later, all of this society would be thrown into World War One. Less than 5 years after that, the emperor is overthrown. The Bolshevik Revolution and the Civil War is just going to throw all of this into chaos. What happens to Lopakhin if he's indeed still alive? As a wealthy man in the Bolshevik Revolution. Things to think about. Not necessarily part of Chekhov's story, but I guess a little bit extra, that is, maybe, that's been on my mind. Anyway, are you reading along? Are you watching along? I'm going to put links to two versions of this that are on YouTube. Both of them with Judi Dench, but with her in different roles. They're about 20 years apart. Both really good. I prefer the color one. But check it out. I really love these Chekhov plays. And next week we're going to talk about one of his longer stories, Ward Number 6. Thanks for watching. Bye.